Hey, Jeff from San Jose State University. Thank you for asking me to do a student interview. And you first question is, what degrees do you have when you got the position at the company? I got my master's degree in computer science soon after my bachelor's degree in computer science, same subject. And my first entry level software engineering gig was at Booz Allen Hamilton. I'm not absolutely sure, but I suppose my master's degree had an influence on getting hired. Second question, what is your official job title and what are your responsibilities? My title would be software engineer, and I basically get requirements from clients and build out the requirements. Sometimes the requirements could be very detailed, and sometimes I have to use my experience and come up with a UI that would be interesting, that they would be interested in using. So there's some interpretation involved. So that's pretty much the really short version of it. It also involves like meetings and uh, but I would say most of it, 90 or 80% of it, is really just sitting down in front of a computer, just developing software, and and those, you know, I think that's basically a good description of what I do. Question three: how is your typical day as an engineer? So I work 8-hour days from 8:30. It's pretty flexible. I could do earlier or later. Uh, um, and I just put in the 8 hours and I go home. And sometimes I leave later if I don't manage my time too well, because I get really into working. So I just kind of like, hey, I just want to get this thing done. So I would just kind of work a little bit too much. But it's fairly flexible. Usually I start my days checking my email and reviewing my to-do list. So I just started a job a month ago, so that's kind of what I've been doing. I'm still trying to get familiar with the whole situation, but that's basically it. Yeah, day to day. Sometimes I would get emails or a visit from the client. Like he would just walk up to my cubicle and just say, hey, I saw that thing you built. Can you like change that and add this little thing to it? And so I would have to track that. It's just kind of how it works over there. So I have to track all those things and try to get those things done and then work on like bigger projects. Question four: what area of your job is focusing on? I would be focusing on writing code that would benefit our clients, mostly through visualizing the data. Yeah, I mean, I have to kind of understand the value of the data and what they really can get most out of it. And that I guess that would be my focus, is really just trying to provide that in the best way possible. Question five: what kind of technical skills do you need as an engineer? So, I think a bachelor's degree pretty much gets you started. It covers all the general programming concepts that you need. I definitely recommend taking all the hard programming classes like algorithms, data structures, and compilers. There could be other hard ones. Um, and all these concepts that you learn from those classes will be used on a daily basis, and not knowing them will cause you to struggle. Um, yeah, so when you're going to college, you're paying like a tuition, massive amounts of money for tuition and your time. You're not going to go out there to just get by with the easy stuff. I think you want to get the most out of college and learn and take on those hard classes. So that's kind of how my take on college when I was going through it. Question six: what type of communication do you need? Email communication is probably harder than it sounds. As you move up to a senior level position, you'll realize that you have to be very careful on what you say to individuals in high positions. So, for example, an emails, when you write emails, it becomes the record of what was promised as opposed to what you might say face to face. So, in an email, you're gonna be like, I'm gonna get this done by today, and that's gonna be on record, and you kind of just don't want to say those like solid promises. You kind of have to make sure that the what you said is, and you could just say it. Oh yeah, maybe I'll get it done by today, but then they'll like take it literally. It's gonna be done today. So, I mean, that's just a small example, but you just have to be a little more careful, and I've kind of ran into those problems personally. But unless you want to become a project manager, I think you don't necessarily have to worry about meetings too much. Um, any reasonable team should have a project manager, so project manager would take care of a lot of those things. Reports are just things clients ask for as a formality, at least in my experience, and they don't really read it after that. So I don't know. That's just my experience. Uh, and usually, as a software engineer, you would be asked to generate those reports, and so that's kind of where I see reports, um, what they become. Question 7: How often do you have to do meeting or reports? In my current job, I have 2 weekly meetings. I had much less previously, which I would prefer, but it depends on whether I'm actually a part of the meeting or rather it's just something I have to listen in on with like 10 other people. And that's been happening recently. I don't really like it, but otherwise, they're kind of intermittent meetings with clients or current, um, just, clients that I've been working with and they need something built. So those are meetings I would prefer. As far as question 8, what is the environmental concern at your department or company? There's no. I've of the companies I work with, they don't have, or at least because I'm a programmer, just kind of I'm a contractor, so I don't I'm not like usually with the company. So if they wanted to do something for the environment, they might have like volunteer activities, like clean up the beach or something, and uh, I haven't needed to, but I could have. Um, Otherwise, it's not like a concern of what I would do day to day. Question 9: How can your job help out the environment, or what do you think you can to help out the environment? I suppose I would help out from a personal perspective. That would be by buying solar panels or using alternative transportation or just kind of overall being less wasteful. If I don't have to drop off my kids and if I didn't work so far, I'd probably ride my bicycle to work, but otherwise it would be a strain to just go that far, on a bicycle. My electric bill is currently not high enough to warrant a purchase of solar panels, but I'm thinking about it for when I eventually purchase an electric car. So, I mean, there's things I do think about it. I feel like I'm relatively like not a very wasteful person, and I do think about the environment personally. But as far as my company, yeah, that's just not a concern. Yeah. What are the ethical dilemmas that your department or company might have encountered? Question 10. I haven't come across a controversial ethical dilemma thus far. I suppose in my work environment, we automatically do what is right. For example, logging your time. We should truthfully perform our required 40 hours a week. I can't say there was like a blatant misuse of time. So beyond that, there's no real ethical concerns. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, there seems to be like kind of hey, let's all follow rules. That's kind of like the general consensus. Like hey, what is the rule? Let's follow it. And um, yeah. Question 11. Do you have any advice on how to get a job as an engineer? If there was a good time to learn how to write a resume, it's now. Start now and continuously tweak your resume. I suppose before you start job searching, you'd want to get really serious and get feedback from hopefully working professionals or a hiring manager. My uncle reviewed mine a bunch of times. We went through a handful of drafts. Um, Resume writing will be something you'll be doing from now until the end of your working career, so it's probably a good idea to get good at this earlier than later, you know. As far as certifications are concerned, I never got a certification before getting a job. I had to get the Security Plus certification just out of a job requirement. I never saw the value of holding certifications more than a bachelor's degree. So if you have that already, usually it'll just, it's not needed. Bachelor's degree in career science should probably be sufficient. I was told by my boss when at Booz Allen Hamilton that my internship experience as a Java developer was the winning factor to my application. So if you can, definitely go get internships as much as possible. Hiring managers always like to see work experience over having none. So as far as my experience is, just get that experience. There's always jobs just kind of looking for, even for entry level, they'll ask for experience, and you just got to get that. As far as my master's degree, I only got it for two reasons. Number one, I got a full tuition scholarship, and two, I still had motivation to study. So I felt like it. So just given those reasons, it wasn't like, hey, if I get this, it'll guarantee my getting a job. It wasn't. I didn't think about the money just because, usually when I hear people talk about getting a master's degree, I'm always concerned about the money, like the tuition, which is gonna cost a lot, and at this point, I didn't have to think about it. For my situation, I didn't have to think about that kind of investment, and also I just was kind of in this. I was wrestling during my bachelor's degree. I was on the wrestling team, and after I got my bachelor's, I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna wrestle anymore. So basically, all 4 years of college, I was wrestling. So I was just absolutely busy, just swamped in schedules, and I just wanted to experience college just a little bit more. So kind of that was my motivation to stay. But otherwise, I think you can do fine without a master's degree. But if you did have an opportunity like I did, I think you should definitely go for it. Alright, so I think that's all the questions. I hope I answered them in a way that you can be satisfied with. Thanks for having me.